A Karen thinks that I corrupted her son and made him become trans. Then she expects me to financially compensate her because of this, due to me corrupting her child to become trans. She then tries to steal my ID and run off with it. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. Obligatory, English is not my first language, and this story takes place in Mexico City. A bit of backstory to the events. I am a transgender man. I had my top surgery a little over a year ago. Yay. However, for personal medical reasons, I decided not to go through HRT, hormone replacement therapy. Because of that, and the fact that my height is around 1.52 meters, which is 4'9", I'm stuck as being perceived as a teen/young adult, even though I'm 35 years old. So now on to the story. I was hanging out in my favorite coffee shop. I always stay on the smoking area as I am, a smoker. Anyways, our laws over here state that to be able to stay in the smoking area, you need to be at least the age to smoke, which is 18. Keep in mind though, this law is not as harsh and as strict in other places like the United States. A bit relevant also, I have been a regular at this coffee place for at least 10 years. I know most of the waiters by name. Karen enters with a kid around the age of 5 and invades 2 tables, which is a bit rude since the smoke area only has 6 tables, but whatever. One for her and the other for her son, who proceed to take out some crayons and a coloring book. I ignore all this as I am lost in the book that I'm reading. At this point, I do something as crazy as light a smoke in the smoking area, and a few seconds later, I hear the dreaded sound of Karen clearing her throat. I ignore her and the next exchange occurs. Young man, listen to me. Me being annoyed that my reading was interrupted. Yeah? Don't you think it's a bit rude that you are blowing smoke all over my son? I point to the big sign on the wall that says smoking area, 18 and over only. Do you even know how to talk? Are you an R-word? Answer me. You are way too young to be smoking. Anyways, whatever, lady. I proceed to take my headphones out of my backpack and plug them in. Karen keeps speaking, but by the miracle of technology, I can't make out a word she says. So I figured that was all. A few minutes later, I notice some commotion around me and again hear the sound of dear Karen's banshee howls. I look up and see Karen arguing with one of the waiters and pointing at me. So of course I take off my headphones to hear what that was all about. You have to do something. He's clearly underage and blowing smoke all over my son. Just in for a second that I will call the police on us. The waiter says, ma'am, as I already told you, I don't need to ask that young man's ID as he has been coming here for years. I don't care. I know the law. I know my rights. He needs to show his ID to stay in the smoking area. Kind of right, I will concede, but at this point I lose interest and plug myself back into my music. The waiter, after a few futile minutes of argue with Karen, taps on my shoulder and says, hey man, I'm really sorry. Can you just pull out your ID so this lady can move on? I take my ID out from my back pocket, which is still with my dead name, as even though changing your birth certificate is legal and relatively cheap in Mexico City, I would have to spend around $1,000 US to get all my paperwork, education degrees, passport, driver's license, and my drill changed, and I spend most of my savings on my surgery. So the waiter tells her, okay ma'am, you can see here that he has shown me a valid form of identification. Now you have your kid out of here, and let me see that. She snatches my ID from the waiter's hand. This is clearly fake. That's a woman's name. How dare you impersonate a woman? The waiter said, ma'am, the ID is real and you need to give it back to him right now. Now, I'm calling the police right now so they can confiscate this and question him about why he is carrying a fake ID. That is a felony. Then she turned to me and said, now you had a lot to explain, young man. If only you could have been polite and not smoke all over my son. Me finally losing my patience. Lady, I do not owe you an explanation, but for the sake of ending this and me going back to my book, I am a transgender man. I was born a woman, but I am not one, and my ID still has yet to reflect my gender identity. All settled? Good. Now give me back my ID. Karen, while her face went from normal to red in less than 3 seconds, visibly disturbed, said, you are a freak. How dare you stand so close to my child? You are going to collapse him. Now addressing the waiter, transgender. How dare you allow transgender freaks in here? The kid said, Mommy, what does transgender mean? Me, after knowing that my afternoon is already spoiled and thinking, what the heck, just let the world burn right now. I say, I am transgender. That means I was born like a girl, but inside, I always knew I am a boy. So I changed my name and how I look, and I am very happy right now. Karen said this, overlapping the same time while speaking to her son, and said, don't talk to my child. Don't even talk. Mommy, that means I can be a girl. Now, I don't think the kid is trans or anything. This is actually a pretty common question when explaining to little kids about trans people. For Karen, it took a few seconds to get out of the shock of it all, and she screamed, how dare you? you have just corrupted my son. I demand compensation. My child is Roland. Now, as you can imagine, by then we had a pretty small crowd watching over, which eventually got the manager's attention. The manager said, "What's going on here? Ma'am, I need to ask you to lower your voice and moderate your language." She used a few choice cuss words and offensive slang to refer to me, but I won't even dignify to reproduce them. "I will talk as loud as I want. It is outrageous what happens here. Are you in charge?" "Yes, ma'am. I'm the manager of this coffee place, and if you don't lower your voice, I will have to ask you to leave. Now, can you explain to me why you are yelling at my staff and my customers?" "I'm a member of the Family League." The Family League in Mexico is a right-wing association that fights against LGBT plus rights in general, abortion, single moms, and yeah, everything that is not your traditional mommy, daddy, and kids family. "I will have this place shut down in a heartbeat if I don't get compensation right now." The manager, being a bit sassy at this point, says, "And what exactly should we compensate you for?" "That freak made my boy transgender. You allow a predator to be here and corrupt your minds." And again, how does that entitle you to any compensation? "I will have to pay for therapy for my son now. Maybe even ask my congregation to pray over him. That costs money. This is reckless endangerment. Those freaks should be kept away from the innocent, God-fearing people." One of the other customers in the store said, "Hey, come on, lady, stop it. You've been drumming our ears off for 10 minutes now with your ignorance and your transphobia. If anyone is entitled to compensation, it's us." The manager stepped in saying, "I agree with him, ma'am. Please leave the premises." "This is not the end of things. I will have to license at no time." She grabs her kid and then proceeds to leave. The waiter, blocking her way, says, "There is still the matter of the bill, ma'am, and give me the ID back." "I didn't even get to drink my coffee. It's already cold. I shouldn't have to pay." "That sounds like a you problem, but if you want me to call mall security in no time, we can let them settle this, and in the meanwhile, I'll also let them write a report of you having your son that is clearly underage in a smoking area." Now, this kind of complaint may lead to the equivalent of CPS involved if mall security passes the report to the police. Karen is defeated at this point. Such a wonderful view. She threw my ID on the ground, got her kid, and started leaving. As she left, I couldn't help myself. Probably not my brightest moment, but yeah, I was pissed. I said, yelling at her kid, "Hey kiddo, remember, you can be anything you want to be." Karen huffed and puffed and gave me the finger as she walked away. So now that you know how everything went down, am I the jerk? First off, why would she want to take her kids into a smoking area anyway? These are young kids, and she's obviously not smoking, but yet she wants her kids to be around smoke and take up these tables out there? So the whole premise behind trying to get the idea in the first place was because of the smoking, but that's obviously when everything radically shifted. I just don't get any situation where somebody's minding their own business and you're going up to them and you're telling them what to do when they're supposed to be there in the first place. But then it turns into this whole situation where she thinks that her kid is being corrupted, but the OP here, the original poster, never would even talk to either one of them if the lady wasn't demanding the ID of the OP that is sitting in the smoking area smoking. It's one thing to have your beliefs and stand by them, but when someone's minding their own business, they're not encroaching on you, you're encroaching on them, regardless of what side of the fence you land on. The way the lady makes this sound is like they're all three sitting out there, and then the OP goes up and whispers something into the kid's ear, and then all of a sudden the kid starts saying, "Mommy, I want to be trans," which is not exactly how it went down. So let me know how you see the situation from whichever country you're from. If you're from Mexico, let me know if this sort of interaction is normal, or whatever country you happen to be from, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. A woman won't let me get into the building where I live and pretends to work there. Here's some context to the story. I live in the center of town that does a yearly half marathon. The marathon route basically tracks me in my building as it goes on roads around it, which I need to cross to reach the rest of town. It has been taking place years and was here before me, so I'm not bothered by it. I just avoid leaving my building until most of the runners have gone. On this day, I had an errand to run, but was going out in the afternoon, so was forced to push through the crowd on pavements to then wait and cross through the runners. I managed to get to the shops and do what I needed to do. On my way back, it started hailing a crazy amount, huge stones, and made it look like it had been snowed on. Spectators were sheltering underneath shop awnings, including the one above the door to my building, where a mom and her two younger children were standing. I tell her, "Excuse me, sorry, can I just quickly get through?" The entitled mother, looking absolutely furious, says, "No, find your own spot. I standing here." I think, fair enough, the door isn't too obvious. But I say, "No, actually, I just live in this building, so I need to get through that door." "I don't think so. These are offices. I work in them. Don't try to fool me and my girls into moving for you." They're not offices, so Lord knows why she'd say that. She's still in my way. So I tell her, "I really do live here. Look, I have my key and I can open this door." "No, can't you just piss off and go somewhere else?" She is being loud, so everyone nearby can hear and is staring staring. I tell her, look, I really do just want to get into my home. Everyone is looking at us now, so if I'm just trying to get you out of the way, I don't think you'll put up with that, do you? Fine. Remember, everyone is looking. She moves, so I put my key in the door. She was surprised it opens. I give the entitled mother a little wave as I walk through, and I see a couple of onlookers stifling some laughter. After all that, the entitled mother walks off with the two daughters into the hail. There's been a lot of comments about why she lied. My building genuinely does look like a block of offices, so my guess is that she was assuming I was lying to get away from the hail and made a quick judgment. I look very young, have pink hair, piercings, and tattoos to decide her lie was more believable than mine. Pro tip, if you can possibly avoid it, I know it's near impossible in busy cities, do not get an apartment in a business area of town or city. People are jerks. This is the worst inconvenience, but we get so much staring and people looking into our lobby when we're unloading food, shopping, moving big items, just leaving the building. It is annoying. So with all that said, was the mother the jerk? Apparently the mother can just shamelessly lie and not even get embarrassed about it when she's found out. She claimed that she worked in that building, therefore she must know what that building is. So in front of everyone there, she just shamelessly lies about herself, and then she gets caught, and it's no big deal. She's okay with it. Besides all the reasons the OP gave, it does sound pretty annoying to live in a place like that, where for every marathon or parade or whatever it is, your streets are blocked off around you. I've heard of situations where cities will have music festivals downtown, and in some of those cases there are a few last holdout houses, and those people have to walk through metal detectors in order to leave their own homes, and they're escorted out of the festival because they don't get a free ticket to go to the festival that is surrounding their actual house. So they're constantly going in and out of metal detectors during the entire length of that festival. This situation kind of sounds like that, except it's a lot short of a time period. So if you're in this situation, let me know how you would handle it down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. My parents' polyamorous partner tries to parent me. Am I the jerk for refusing to apologize to my parents' polyamorous partner? I'm a 16-year-old female. My parents, who are both 36 years old, became poly 4 years ago. They came to me and explained what it meant to be that. They've been dating the same person, Madison, who's a 27-year-old female, for the past 3 years, and she moved in with us 2 years ago. She's overall an okay-ish person, but she's very much into being some kind of cool mom, which she will never be for me. My parents' relationship with Madison is very serious. Both of my families know her, and while not everyone accepts her as a real part of the marriage, they're okay with her too. For me, she's more like a roommate my parents love, rather than a parent figure or someone that I have to listen to. My dad is okay with her trying to discipline me, but my mom is not. Well, 2 days ago, my boyfriend walked me home and I invited him to have a piece of cake since my mom's birthday was the day before and he couldn't come. He said yes, and we went inside, and that's honestly everything we did. Madison came home an hour after we were still in the kitchen, eating and watching TikToks together. I had my head on his shoulder and we were just chilling. She saw us and began to act very weird. She said hi and drank a glass of water, but after 10 minutes, she just stood there pretending to watch her phone, but it was pretty obvious she was watching us. My boyfriend felt uncomfortable and he said his goodbyes. When Madison and I were left alone, she approached me saying that it wasn't okay being alone with a boy at 16 years old and she would appreciate that I don't do it again. I was honestly shocked. My parents know my boyfriend pretty well, and more than that, they know me. I would never betray their trust by doing something I'm not allowed yet, just because I was alone. She wanted to keep talking, but I cut her off and said that she had no right to give me the talk, and she wasn't my parent in any form to try and parent me or give me unsolicited advice. She said that she was just trying to help me, but I said she better not. And any concern she had, she could talk it through with my real parents to see if it fits, and they will talk to me. But just because she was dating them both didn't make her mommy too, and I went to my room. This morning while my dad drove me to school, he said that Madison talked to both of them and my mom decided that she overstepped, but that he agreed with her and he would appreciate a heads up when my boyfriend and I are alone, and that if it was okay for me, I could apologize. But I said I didn't feel like it, and he said he was disappointed. Update from the future. Per my last update, around 5 p.m., my mom got home, and 30 or so minutes later, I asked my dad and her if we could talk. Madison was at the gym, so we just sat on the couch and I was honest. I told my mom what my dad had said in the morning ride, and I confessed to my dad that it was unfair that just because Madison thought it was improper of us, my boyfriend and I, to be alone in the house, he suddenly changes the game. I've always been completely honest with them, and I reminded them so. I said that as soon as we got home, I sent them a text telling them that I was already here and that my boyfriend was over, and he said nothing there. I also told them that I didn't feel comfortable with Madison living here, and that maybe I never was, but I was so young to understand what it really meant to have poly parents, and while I don't really care for the romantic life ever since Madison snitched on me, it had made me feel like I'm walking on eggshells in my own house, and that my dad saying he was disappointed felt like Madison matters more than me in the house. I've always been a loner, always. I spent time with my parents, yes, but I love to be alone in my room, in the kitchen, in the living room, doing my own stuff. I've never had to hide for anything, but Madison proved that whatever she doesn't like or she thinks that I shouldn't be doing, she'll spy and tell. And it wasn't fair because while Madison is nothing to me and her opinion doesn't matter, I've proved to them that I can be trusted and I don't like doing things like that behind their back. While saying that, my voice cracked and my dad came to my side and hugged me, saying he was so sorry and that I was right. He apologized to me again for the way that he acted in the car and that he should have never said he was disappointed because he wasn't, that he couldn't have asked for a better kid, and that he felt so bad for hurting me to the point that I had to talk to them alone. He hugged me, and my mom just looked at him and said they had to talk to Madison alone because she has said countless times that she doesn't appreciate her giving advice or thinking that she has some kind of responsibility over me. She also said that I never ever have to walk on eggshells in here because this is my house and will forever be my house, and if I didn't act shamefully, then I don't have to be ashamed, and gave me a kiss on the forehead. She asked me to call my boyfriend so they could apologize to him and give us some money to go to Starbucks for a few hours, and so we did. I honestly don't know everything that happened between them and Madison, but my dad said that he was tired of having to please women in his life, and that whatever he did for mom was a wrong for Madison and vice versa, and that for a while he has wanted to break that relationship but wasn't sure if my mom wanted to because despite not agreeing in parenting choices, my mom loved her a lot and it showed. But my mom said she was done too, and they will be attending couples counseling to see where it gets them. They also gave Madison 2 weeks to move out, but she was already packing when I got home, and she wanted to stay with her parents. She glared at me once, and apart from that, didn't even look at me again. So I guess there's that. That's the update. My parents broke up with Madison and I got to talk to them. It's really weird not having her around, but I really like it. My mom read this post and some of the responses. My dad decided not to because everything was settled. After reading the post, my mom also apologized for bringing Madison in with me so young, and while I said I didn't really mind, she said sorry. So was I the jerk for refusing to apologize to my parents' poly partner? I'm kind of surprised that despite all the decisions that led up to this point, the parents actually heard her out. I feel like a lot of times when something really emotional happens to you, parents will dismiss it or write it off or not really take it seriously. But in this case, not only did they listen, try to understand, they actually ended the relationship with Madison full stop. Leading up to this point, the parents were obviously not on the same page when it came to the OP. One of the top responses highlighted this, referring to the section where the OP said, "My dad is okay with her trying to discipline me, but my mom is not." Right off the bat, this had me mildly concerned. That's kind of a big thing to disagree on. What were they thinking? If you guys have been watching the channel for a long time, you probably remember way back there was a story about the kids that disowned their polyamorous parents. They just completely cut them out of their lives for good. But if I remember right in that story, the parents never told the kids. It was a big secret, and when it got found out, that's what made the adult kids say that it was morally wrong and they want nothing to do with them no matter what. In this case, it's a lot different because the kid was way younger when this was revealed to them, and they didn't really have the ability to process everything that it meant. As the OP kind of said here, to be specific, she says, "I also told them that I didn't feel comfortable with Madison living here and that maybe I never was, but I was so young to understand what it really meant to have poly parents." So with all that said, what would you do if you were in this situation, and jerk or not a jerk? And when you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories in this series, use the playlist at the top of the description. And next time you live stream, use the cream of the crop music. Search for Cream of the Stream on Spotify or whatever music platform you use for copyright-free music to use for your stream. It's free, Cream of the Stream. Either way, thanks a lot for listening. I'll see you guys next time.